mud, etc., etc., etc. By the way, there were 3 deaths during that weekend and 2 births. In any event, part of that digital museum is an IMAX film, 11-minute film. And the first voice you hear on that film is mine saying, and now you'll remember, "This sight is hard to believe. We're over the top of the hill now and over the main stage, and for perhaps as far as half a mile, all you can see are people." So, Doug, if I'm not here anymore, you can go up there and you can listen to this voice that doesn't seem to stop.
Well, when you come back down, I know you're down here for part of the year. Bring whatever tapes you have, because
I will take a look. And,
in depth.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this past week, if I can go on, Bill Deal, who is my closest friend and has retired as an ABC Radio News correspondent after 37 years. More than 25 of them, Bill has been their entertainment correspondent, so he's done all the stars and all that sort of stuff, the Britney Spears, and he does the Oscars and the Tonys and the Emmys and all that. He's retired, but a WNEW-FM, former WNEW-FM, these stations are not on the air anymore, a DJ named Pete Fornatel has written the story of Woodstock. It's called Back to the Garden. And Pete does a tremendous presentation around the country. He's pushing his book and all that sort of stuff. But this past Monday, Pete invited myself and Bill Deal down to the Samsung showroom at the CNN Center on Columbus Circle here in New York City. Huge building, and Samsung Electronics has all of its television screens and whatever digital stuff it has there. And Pete did a beautiful, beautiful hour-long presentation bringing everybody back to the garden. In essence, bringing everybody back to those years and that weekend. And believe it or not, he surprised me, because part of that PowerPoint and video and audio demonstration had my voice saying just what you heard. And we had to stand up and wave to the crowd, and had a big crowd there. I think the important thing about that crowd was, and this I hope your listeners can identify with, is that whether there were older people there like myself and Bill, there were also younger people who were saying that radio still does live and that they miss it. With all the high tech that we're going through now, with your iPads, your iPods, your goodness knows what else, there is a huge audience still for tuning in FM and to a lesser extent now AM radio.
Right.
And we saw it there with a number of younger people who came over to us and said, gee, I grew up listening to you. I wanted to push them away and say, that old I'm not, kid. But
I grew up listening to you, Mike.
Did you? All right, kid, you can stay. In any event, and you find all sorts of people, even down in Sarasota. Now, I live in Englewood, which is 28 miles south of Marina Jacks, and it's next to Venice. And this past April, Bill and I Bill came down. He wanted to see what his friend Eisgrau was doing down there in Florida. And we were on Venice Avenue. It had some brunch, and we were walking along, and Bill was a little ahead of me. And I happened to see a restaurant with an outdoor dining area, and I hadn't seen that before, and I saw a couple sitting there. And you know me, Doug, I've been a man-in-the-street reporter for so long I can talk to a post. But I went over, I said, hey, how's the food and all that? We started talking, and the guy said, what's your name? I said, my name's Mike Eigrau. I said, what's your name? He said, Bobby Vinton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Bobby and Dolly Vinton, Blue Velvet, Roses Are Red, etc., etc., they live down near me in Englewood.
Right.
Bobby is 75 years old, in great shape. Dolly, who he's known since the second grade, is his wife for God knows, for all his life, actually. And he's still performing around the country. And Bill, I called Bill. I said, "Hey, Deal, get back here for crying out loud. Here's Bobby Vinton." We had a lovely chat for half an hour talking about it. And Bill says to Bobby, "Listen, Bobby, do you ever get to New York?" And Bobby says, "Yeah, I think we'll be up there this summer." "Look, when you get to New York, give me a call. I want to get you into an ABC network radio studio, and we want to do. I want to do an interview with you. We can put it on the internet if we can't get it on the regular radio net, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Well, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Bobby and Dolly were up there, and we were all over at ABC Radio Network. And Bill brought Bobby in, and they did a terrific interview about Bobby's his career and his history and all that sort of stuff. And he's very, very good on the air. And as a matter of fact, if you go to, I think it's ABC Radio something or other, if you go to the ABC Radio Network website, you can, their people have cut it down, and it's on the web now. Also, you might know that when they do radio interviews now, at least at the ABC network, there are slave television cameras in the studio.
Right.
So that you can see actual talking heads, and they put all of that up on the web now, so that's an advance. I told Deal, you better wear a tie and jacket so you don't look so bad. In any event, we had a terrific time with Bobby Vinton, and then Bobby left. All right? Now, what is Bill doing now? Bill goes back into the office, to the newsroom, about 4 or 5 days a month. And Bill does prepared obituaries.
Right.
Because he's got all of the tape and the interviews with all of these stars, and eventually, God, let them live and be well, they're going to die. And most people don't realize that one of the basics of journalism is the prepared obituary. The graduate school in journalism, that was one of the first things I wrote. In any event, Bill does this for radio, and he will pull out the cuts from the interview, and he will do a brief obituary. You can go maybe a minute and a half or maybe a minute on radio, as Doug knows, that as you know, Doug, otherwise you get thrown off the air. There's just not that much time nowadays. There's a 40-second thing you can do, and Bill does beautiful things. And after Bobby left, I said, "You did it, didn't you?" He says, "Don't tell him," and he may now know. But we pulled some cuts, and may Bobby live for another 50 years, you know. But it works that way. When Paul Newman died, the story broke at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Bill had already interviewed Newman years before, and all the editor on duty had to do was to pull out of the computer Bill's obituary for Paul Newman. And the newscaster said, "Sad news this morning, Paul Newman, the great actor, has died. Bill Deal looks back on Paul's career."
Right.
That type of thing. Anyway, I've talked an awful lot.
No, that was interesting.
I
had Bobby Vinton on, remember the other station we were at a few years ago, and then I met him in Whole Foods one day in Sarasota. It's kind of interesting to see Bobby Vinton walking around there. So, yeah, you do see him around town.
Well, I see. Obviously, we see him around food a lot, I
guess. Right. Well, Mike, I appreciate you taking a few minutes just to kind of remember Woodstock. I know a lot of the audience here at WSLR will appreciate that and your great career. And when you get back down this fall or winter, let's get in studio here one day. We'll do Remembrance of WNEW. That's what part of this show is about, remembering that station.
Give us a little more, kid.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
We'll talk to you soon.